I already have a couple videos about solving absolute value equations. This is an inequality, but don't let it mess you up. You're still going to do most of the same steps here. You can just treat it like an equal sign when you're trying to get x by itself. So first thing we need to do is isolate the absolute value. I need to get rid of that 2 minus in front. Now, this is 2 subtracting the absolute value. So if I were to move 2 to the other side, I need to subtract it. The reason I pointed that out is because I've seen a lot of students before add 2 to the other side because they see that minus sign, but the minus sign is after the 2. It is a positive 2, so in order to move it, I need to subtract. Now I need to get rid of the negative in front. So if I multiply both sides by -1, or if I divide both sides by -1, it's the same thing. Either way, we need to get rid of that negative. Now, remember, when you have an inequality, you need to flip the sign if you have multiplied or divided by a negative, and that still applies in this example. So I have my absolute value by itself. I have flipped the sign because I had to divide by a negative. So I can move on to my next step, which is where I will split this up into 2 different equations that I need to solve. So the first equation, I just rewrite this as is. Now for my second equation, when I rewrite that, I'm making it a -13. And it's the same rule as before. You have to imagine that I'm multiplying by a negative or dividing by a negative in order to turn this into a -13. So that means the sign is actually going to flip again in the second equation. So now we can solve both of these. They're going to be the same steps in each equation. I'm going to start by multiplying by 2. And then add 1. So my first answer is x is greater than 27. So that means it's every single number you could possibly think of that's greater than 27. My second equation gives me x is less than -25. Now, it is very important that you always check your work. Now, this is actually an inequality instead of an equal sign. So when you check your work, you want to plug in numbers that actually fall in that interval. So if x is greater than 27, you need to check if a number greater than 27 is going to work. Same with x being less than -25. If x is less than -25, what should work is a number less than -25. So I'll demonstrate with the x is greater than 27. I'm going to plug in 25. Sorry, I can't plug in 25. I'm going to plug in 29 is what I meant to say. Sorry. So I've plugged in 29 because it's a number greater than 27. And the reason I picked 29 is because I know once I subtract 1 and then divide by 2, I'll end up with a whole number. You could have gone with 28, it's fine. So we simplify inside of the absolute value. We end up with 28 over 2, which is 14. And now we find the absolute value of 14. Which is still 14. And then we subtract. And we end up with a statement saying that negative 12 is less than negative 11. This is true, so that means x is greater than 27 is valid for this question. You can do the same thing with x is less than negative 25. In this case, I plugged in negative 27. If you want to do that on your own, I highly encourage you to do that now by pausing the video. So as you can see by my work, I ended up plugging in negative 27, and I ended up with negative 12 is less than negative 11, which is still a true statement, so both of these solutions are correct.